Shall I?
Great. So let's start talking. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us today on Zoom. My name is Alyssa Brewer, and I've had the honor of serving in a variety of elected and appointed roles in Amherst Town government from 1999 to 2021, including serving as an at-large town councilor from 2018 until my retirement in 2021, as well as being today's moderator. Today is Sunday, October 22nd, 2023. This 2-hour forum is being recorded and will be available on the District 1 Neighborhood Association website soon, amherstdona.org. The District 1 Neighborhood Association, DONA, is a nonpartisan volunteer organization that organizes in the North Amherst community to address common problems and concerns, to help residents understand and participate in town affairs and government, and to build community. DONA was the first organized district-wide neighborhood association to interact with Amherst's new form of government, and we hope it won't be the last. Please check out amherstdona.org for more information on what your neighbors have been working on. That website already has a list of candidates' contact links, so you can continue to reach out to them directly, as well as links to their work on other websites, including 900-character statements on the town website in the town clerk section. 2 years ago, our DONA candidate forum was earlier in October, rather than just 2 weeks ahead of the Tuesday, November 7th, 2023 election. So I'm going to skip most of my usual educational segment. Meg Gage and Ava Fradkin are the DONA folks doing all the heavy lifting today with the Zoom we have. And we've also been working with Jessica Mix-Barrington and Janet Keller to bring you today's program. We are in Zoom today because COVID-19 is still a significant health risk for many of our neighbors, and because we thought we could provide a better quality recording of a Zoom program than of a live event. In today's Zoom, there will be no audience participation, no chat, and no Q&A. I hope if you sign off now because you can't talk, that you will take the time to watch or listen to this recording later. If you had your camera on and then it got turned off, it's not a gremlin in your computer. It's that we are trying to not have people's cameras be live unless they are one of the panelists today. That's our error in setting up our Zoom perfectly. Probably you will not actually show up on the recording. Candidates were provided with detailed instructions on today's forum format, but they were not given any questions ahead of time. However, Meg and Jessica did repeatedly solicit input from North Amherst residents in 2021, and it held up surprisingly well here 2 years on, so we shared it again. While we also made it clear that today's questions were not limited to that document, we believe it's important that all candidates be aware of all the different kinds of concerns expressed as they continue to discuss their goals with residents throughout the campaign cycle and beyond. All candidates were also informed that today there will be no questions about the Jones Library project or the schools or school committee. Ava and Meg, will you please fill in any technical points I may have missed and also explain how we're handling time limits given the Zoom limit we have? We didn't say anything about a giant gong or an air horn, right, but I know we've got something. And we're not afraid of the mute button here, folks. So if you get shut off, it's, again, probably because we did it. Meg?
So everyone will have 2 minutes for each question. And when 90 seconds have gone by and you have 30 seconds left, a yellow pepper will show up on my screen. And when your time is up, a red pepper will show up on my screen. And 5 seconds after the red pepper, because we really want to get this done in the time that we have available, you will rudely be muted.
Thank you, Meg. Not rudely, just unfortunately.
All right. Yeah.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for, the opening statements. These are strictly 2 minutes each, so we'll hope we can get through this segment in about 17 minutes. Candidates, please be sure to state your name clearly at the beginning of your statement. Ava, you have the order I provided you, which for opening statements is printed ballot order. So Andrew Steinberg will be first, that's a mistake. I rewrote this. Actually, I decided, you know what? The District 1 candidates need to go first. And so Freka is first with his opening statement, which is a surprise to him because none of the candidates knew ahead of time what order we were going to go in. Freka, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Ndi Freke Ete, but I normally go by Freke. I'm a new resident, you could say, of Amherst. I've been here for 3 years, and I've been at North Amherst for a year, and I found this town to be a welcoming place. And so I've decided to run for town council. I'd like to give you just a brief background about myself. I came to Amherst as a political science professor at Amherst College, and currently I am with UMass as the Assistant Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I have worked with the town as a member of the Community Safety and Social Justice Committee, and I've done that for about a year. And we've worked on DEI themes for the town. I'm running because I think it's important that we create a good community where we can have public input into the decisions that are made by the town, but also to have the kind of environment where you're not having confrontations and the climate isn't one that is unconducive for conversation. I think it's important that we collaborate together on some of the difficult issues that we have in the town. And I think collaboration is key to getting things done in Amherst. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you, Freke. Vince, if you would please have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Please
Oh, I'm
unmute
sorry,
yourself,
Vince is
Vince.
muted. Let's let him start again. Hold on, Vince, we'll get you unmuted. We really will.
Doesn't he have to unmute himself?
Yeah, I believe Vince, you need to unmute yourself.
He needs help.
So that should be in the upper, it depends on your computer, but it should be if you put a mouse or trackpad up over your upper right corner, you'll see 3 little dots, and usually that'll let you unmute. Or some computers it's set if you press the space bar, or depends.
I think I'm unmuted now.
Perfect. You can have 2
Okay.
minutes now, Vince.
Okay, so I intended to run at large until I think, unfortunately, one of the incumbent District 1 councilors decided at the last minute not to run, having taken out papers. And so my concerns, first, I have a long history of effective action on behalf of North Amherst issues. Everything from helping to organize the effort to save what is now the Simple Gifts Farm, to helping to effect the purchase of the Cherry Hill recreation facility and affordable housing site. And people should know that I say affordable housing site, people don't realize that the Cherry Hill community itself self-funded the affordability of 30% of their units. And I think that is something that they deserve a lot of credit for. They didn't take government money, they did it themselves. And it was a real credit to that community to do that. So what I believe is that the way to bring people together and to reduce the tension in the community is to deliver effective governmental services. I think if any neighborhood in this community, you'll see poor quality roads, people complaining about them. And unfortunately, we need to accomplish the goal of fixing our roads, funding our schools, and making the council more accessible to the public. And that's why I'm in the race. And I have specific concerns about how to accomplish that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping to time. Kathy, 2-minute opening statement.
Hi, I'm Kathy Shane, and I actually have been the District 1 counselor since the council started, and I'm running for re-election with two main goals and a lot of subsets. The first is to shepherd a new elementary school from design to construction. And the second is a broad one, to use my skills as an economist to address Amherst's fiscal and growth challenges. My council experience also provides a base to build on. I've served as the chair of the elementary school building committee, the chair of the joint capital planning committee, and vice chair of finance. My top priorities, and I think we'll get in Q&A on these later, for the next few years are taking this school from design to construction, which means a strong education program in a model climate sensitive net zero school building, repairing our roads and sidewalks, prioritizing spending on urgent needs to minimize taxpayer impact, and ensuring that development enhances neighborhoods, protects open spaces and our farms, provides affordable housing, and addresses climate change. I also, as many of you know, have been a strong advocate for North Amherst. Up here, I helped secure a smart traffic light in a dangerous intersection, lowered a speed limit on a state road, among other actions, including helped getting permits for our businesses and our local farm team. As if I'm elected and re-elected, I hope to continue to use this experience and my experience as an economist to address very severe budget challenges as we look forward. And I will say more about that as we move to the question and answers. I think many of you know I've been a longtime resident of town, and the reason I'm running is to give back to a town who's given so much to me and my family. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Steinberg, you have 2-minute opening statement, please.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm one of the 5 people running for one of your 3 votes for councilor at large. A challenge for running for a townwide position as opposed to our district representatives is the need to campaign in all 5 districts. The benefit is that we are able to meet people from all parts of Amherst. Today, the 5 of us are with you, residents of the District 1 that has its center in North Amherst. Even though I live in District 2, I am just over the line 2 houses from Cushman Common. Cushman and North Amherst are linked by Pine Street and the hiking trails that connect at Puffer's Pond. Many of you know my wife, Valerie Steinberg, from her many years at the circulation desk at the North Amherst Library. She was transferred to working at Munson and misses seeing all of you and who regularly use our branch. These connections help me understand what is special about District 1, the neighborhood, the village center, the recreation and conservation areas, the remaining active agricultural land, and the proximity to UMass. During the forum, I will focus on my vision for Amherst, my experience in town government, my extensive understanding of town finances, and my ability to work with others to achieve results. We pay property taxes in order to collectively buy services we cannot acquire on our own: schools, libraries, public safety, recreation, and other community service programs, and other government services that are essential to our quality of life that we seek for ourselves and our families.
I need your help.
I have always been and remain committed to assure that we provide those services. Finally, this virtual format allows a lot of people to participate, but I missed the opportunity to see all of you in person. Don't hesitate to reach out to me through my website or email, leave a phone number, and I would really relish the opportunity to speak with you in person.
Thank you. 2-minute opening statement from Alicia Walker.
Oh, I almost feel like waiting till Brian gets. I am going to.
And I'm going to ask that someone make sure they're muted before Alicia gets to restart her 2 minutes. Okay, great.
Is it okay to go now?
Perfect. Thank you, Alicia.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, I'm Alicia Walker, and I'm honored to stand before you as a lifelong Amherst resident. My roots run deep here, having attended our elementary, middle, and high schools, and later attending UMass. As a single parent, I have the privilege of raising my 3 beautiful children here, where I rent my home, and I work as a legal program manager in the downtown area. Currently, I serve as one of your 3 at-large counselors. I'm also a member of the Elementary School Building Committee, the Town's Finance Committee, and the former co-chair of the CSWG. My core belief and the driving force behind my candidacy is representation. Our government should mirror the diversity and complexity of the community it serves. I bring a unique perspective to the table, having experienced the different phases of life in Amherst, from youth to college student, and now as an adult raising a family during a challenging housing crisis. I'm committed to being a counselor who engages with and listens to residents through an equity lens. I want to ensure that a broad range of voices are heard and represented in our decision-making process. I'm determined to leave a legacy of amplifying the voices of traditionally marginalized community members who have long been disengaged by town government, but are the most affected by the decision our council makes. That is exactly why I have chosen to run at large. These marginalized communities are found in all corners of our town, and they deserve authentic representation. I have unwavering faith in our community's ability to build upon our successes and to address our challenges. If re-elected, my priorities include investing in and establishing opportunities for affordable, income-based, and subsidized housing. I'm committed to finding creative, collaborative, community-based solutions to issues such as education, infrastructure, safety, diversity, housing, and climate change. I believe in an anti-racist approach to communication, resources, information, and engagement with our most vulnerable community members. Over the past 2 years, I've learned a great deal and gained a better understanding of how to be an effective leader. I've already initiated some meaningful projects at the council level, and I'm eager to see them through to fruition. In my various capacities, I've worked to make Amherst a better place for all of us. I'm dedicated to preserving the unique character of our town while also addressing the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead. I believe that my experiences and my commitment and my passion for Amherst make me the right candidate. Please vote for me as one of your at-large counselors on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. 2-minute opening statement from Mandy Jo Haneke.
Thank you. I'm Mandy Jo Haneke, and I want to thank the District 1 Neighborhood Association for hosting this event. I've been on the council for 5 years and spent 4 years before that serving on various town boards and committees. I'm a big believer in collaboration, an essential part of tackling major issues. As a counselor, I've sponsored measures with nearly all of my colleagues, working together to find solutions on issues we care about, even if we don't agree on other matters. Being a successful counselor requires compromise, working with those you might not agree with, and putting aside differences for the good of the town. And my record shows I can do that. In my time on the council, I've not been content to just talk about what needs done. When I see a problem, I propose legislation that I believe will address it in a positive way. Just this term, I have co-sponsored legislation with Councillor Devlin Gauthier to increase the amount of money available for affordable and attainable housing projects through the imposition of a transfer fee. Worked with Councillors Taub, Miller, and Rooney to put rental permitting reform at the forefront of the council's agenda, and proposed zoning changes with Councillor DeAngelis aimed at increasing the availability of duplexes and triplexes in town. While the zoning legislation was withdrawn, it spurred crucial conversations both in town and at the planning board about addressing our housing crisis. Those conversations continue to this day. Other measures I've co-sponsored focus on improving our street lighting to increase safety and reduce the negative health effects and protecting our healthcare access. I've always been willing to step in and do the work to get things done, because without that, we don't improve. If re-elected, I want to continue addressing Amherst's aging infrastructure and making Amherst a more equitable town. And I want to keep the momentum going on meeting Amherst's aggressive climate action goals and reaching carbon neutrality by 2050. We've made great progress getting there, but the council can do more. Finally, I will continue focusing on providing more attainable and affordable housing in Amherst. If re-elected, new proposals will learn from my past efforts and continue to focus on the goals of the comprehensive housing policy. I look forward to explaining my positions in more detail this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you. 2-minute opening statement from Jamie Daniels, please. So thank you, District 1, for this opportunity. My name is Jamie Daniels. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a lifelong Amherst resident. I'm a renter. I've been a renter in Amherst for nearly 30 years. I'm a small business owner and a mother of 3 children who I've raised here in Amherst and who attended our public schools. My interest in public service and political life was really born out of my lived experiences. To the council, I bring a rich history, my political commitments shaped by that history, and an abundance of experience. I'm a psychotherapist, an educator, a researcher and scholar, and a lifelong activist. I'm an expert on issues related to race and inclusion. I've have experience with data collection and data analysis. I'm trained in mediation and nonviolent communication and board facilitation. I have experience in organizational leadership. I'm formerly the resident director of the Amherst A Better Chance program. I was a caseworker for Family Outreach of Amherst. I've served on numerous boards and committees, providing organizational and budgetary oversight. I hold dual degrees in psychology and political science from Mount Holyoke College, and an MSW and a PhD from Smith College. I'm committed to addressing the most pressing needs of our community, to which there are many. My top priorities encompass a commitment to increasing revenue and budgeting in a way that reflects our values. It's essential that we look to increase revenue if we're to deal with our affordable housing crisis, our infrastructure challenges, including the crumbling DPW building, our fire stations, roads, and sidewalks, and other important initiatives. I'm committed to smart and sustainable economic development, to advancing racial, economic, and climate justice strategies, and to building a vibrant and united and welcoming Amherst for our whole community of a diverse population, and to promoting just, transparent, and effective government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for our final closing statement for this section, it would be Matt Holloway.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thank you, Meg. And thank you, Dona, for this opportunity. It's wonderful to be here with you. I think the 2 things that I've been talking about, maybe that we don't hear as much. Number 1 are issues relating to children and families. And number 2 is the lack of an economic development director in town hall. So I'll talk about those 2 things a little bit, and then share a little bit about my background as well. When it comes to children and families, I'm very concerned about the lack of adequate childcare in our community. I did a survey out with parents and families earlier this summer, and an overwhelming majority of them pointed out that the lack of affordable and available house childcare was a major issue facing them. So I would like to work on that issue. In addition, our rec department has seen really drastic turnover in the past few years, and I would like to help shore that up through fiscal and also just sort of, I think, public means. And then finally, of course, the thing that we've heard about already, finding attainable, affordable housing for young families is certainly the biggest challenge that Amherst faces when it comes to families. And as we all know, this is particularly important because we have this new elementary school being built, and the hope is that we can bring in families with children to fill that school. The other thing that I want to talk about is the economic development director position. That's something that the town had for several years. The gentleman who was in that position left, and the budget spot remained open for a few years before finally being absorbed into a different department. I think we need a public dialogue around the importance of that position, and we really need to orient economic development in town in a way that speaks upon the values of Amherst and our community, and serves us, and is not simply left to the free market. I'll speak more about this in the Q&A as follows. I'll briefly say I've been serving on the town finance committee for a couple of years, the cultural council for over 3 years, and I co-chaired the Get Out the Vote campaign for the new elementary school building. I'm a student services director in Central Massachusetts, and I respectfully ask for your vote for one of the 3 at-large seats. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And thank you all for those opening such statements. As we move into the questions, none of you will be surprised to hear that we're not asking yes or no questions here. So there won't be very many questions. There's just no easy nor widely accepted scorecard to municipal government. We want you all to leave here today inspired to work with the people your fellow residents voted to serve in town government, not in opposition to them. For Amherst to realize our potential to be the kind of community we all say we want.
As part of the instructions we mailed to the candidates on Thursday, many questions are likely to have a long preface to provide context. So if there's any confusion about what the question was by the time it's your turn to answer, please ask me to repeat it. And all candidate answers should include a focus on North Amherst challenges, which DONA summarized for them as the high number of undergraduate student residents in both apartment complexes and in formerly single-family homes, and the increasing pace that houses are being bought out by out-of-town landlords and turned into undergraduate student residences. Our welcoming of Valley CDC's Ball Lane project of 30 condo houses for first-time home buyers, the desire to keep both private and public open space available to preserve water, floodplain, farm, forest, and recreation resources, our concerns that town plans for addressing traffic and travel issues be effectively informed by North Amherst residents, and the existing National Historic Register designation of North Amherst Village Center and how to maintain the center's historic character and civic center while preserving neighborhoods and supporting economic development. Candidates, you will each have 2 minutes to answer each question, which is the same as the opening statement and the closing statement, except you didn't get to practice these ahead of time. So please watch for those red and yellow peppers. All candidates will answer all the same questions. There will not be separate questions for District 1 and at large. Ava has the order I provided in case anybody has confusion with their camera or their mic. We're going to begin with Kathy Shane. First question is, DONA's work has been fully informed by our town-wide community developed master plan, a plan that calls for so many things, including neighborhood connectivity and walkable streets. You've all noticed that Amherst doesn't have a lot of sidewalks compared to other places lived and visited, and the ones we do have are a challenge to maintain, much less the complete streets concept, including adequate bikeways that we discuss on a case-by-case basis. Some residents have reported more cars speeding as they leave campus, endangering the many bicyclists as well as pedestrians getting on and off both school buses and PVTA buses. What role does the town council have in encouraging DPW to implement plans that have repeatedly been given priority by both resident input and town council votes, like the East Pleasant Street sidewalk in North Amherst? Kathy, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Alyssa. It's a great question on what role we have to get DPW to act. For those of you who have been around since we were setting up priorities, that East Pleasant Street sidewalk actually came in very early to the JCPC, the Joint Capital Planning Committee. It was endorsed by the committee. It was brought very thoughtfully by residents who plotted all the way down the street where it could go. There was seed money put on the books to do a study, and it took 3 to 4 years of repeated requests to get the study done because people forgot about it. The study has been done. So the question is, will we have the money to put in a new sidewalk, Alyssa? You know, but the interesting is that we have a plan now, and it's finding the money for it. And a lot of what we're going to be talking about is where's the money coming from? So in terms of safe streets, the more recent pressure on DPW has come on the Cushman, right near Cushman Market, there's a daycare center. And thanks to our fantastic state legislators, they pointed out that there's an MGL state law provision that says near a daycare center, a town can take control of what otherwise would be state-controlled speed limits. And we can enforce a much lower speed limit. We can put stop signs in, we can put speed bumps in, and we're actually meeting next week to talk about some or all of those. That is, as you said, getting DPW to move on this has been difficult, but now that we also have the town council having voted to take on that safe street and that provision of the state law, we're hoping to move forward. So I could say more about this, but the big issue up here also is our intersection. We really need help with dangerous intersections. It's going to take a lot of money. If you had to drive up here for a meeting and go past the terrific new North Amherst Library, you would have encountered the scariness of the way that intersection works. We need to fix that and make safe way to walk, ride a bike, and drive a car. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for watching for those red and yellow peppers. I know you didn't know these questions ahead of time. The next person to answer that question, and again, I'm happy to repeat it if necessary, is Vince O'Connor.
Vince, you're muted. Yep.
Okay. There are a number of ways that the council can use its power and authority to advance issues like the North Amherst intersection, the making a safe driving area for the Cushman Child Care Center, and getting the sidewalks on East Pleasant Street done. First is, I think we need a Public Works Committee to do a couple of things. One, to prioritize so that we have a council committee that can prioritize the work that's done on our roads and sidewalks and bring that to the council for a vote. The second thing is we need to have a plan to work with UMass, whether we lobby for money at the state level or we seek some sharing of their parking fees in order to accomplish enough revenue to do some of these projects. And we also need to work with UMass to divert some of the traffic that comes into UMass via Sunderland Road and North Pleasant Street to keep folks on 116 and have them enter the university through the UMass off-ramp and exit and access points. Thank you. I think that if we are going to accomplish our roads and street goals, we are going to have more money, more consistent council involvement through a council committee, 3 members and 2 citizens would be my thought. And we need to get on top of all the grant applications the town puts in to the DOT and make sure that they reflect our priorities.
Thank you. 2 minutes to answer, Freka Eddy.
Excuse me. Thank you. So the question is, what role does the town council have in getting the DPW to act on roads, especially, for example, safety? I think one of the things we have to consider is where the money will come from for roads, and where the money will come from to either build new sidewalks or to fix the ones that are already damaged. And I think once we get that done, it's not just enough to have money, because money doesn't fix roads. What is also needed is to direct the town manager to consider sidewalks and road safety as a priority. And when that is a priority, that is something that can filter down to the DPW as projects that they can consider. I think something else that we can do is, as a council, seek input from the members of the community to get a sense of where exactly they would want either sidewalks or some of the concerns that they have settled. They are different communities and they will have different needs. And we as a council will have to weigh those needs in consultation with them and together. And I think those would be some ways in which the town council would be able to work with the DPW and with the town manager to help with regard to roads, sidewalks, and safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia Walker, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So when thinking about what role the council plays to get the DPW to act on certain priorities that have already been established, I think ultimately it's the job of the town manager to manage and oversee the town departments. And so the town council is the governing body that oversees the town manager. And so I absolutely believe that it is within the purview of the council to address this issue and to realize the issue of realizing some of the priorities that have already been passed. There are a number of ways that we can look to make this happen, including adding certain initiatives to the town manager goals, so that we can really start to track the progress of projects, and so that the town manager, it's very clear to him that that's what we're looking to happen, and that's what we will be measuring his effectiveness on. The other thing we can do is, if it's a financial implication and we're looking at it from a financial perspective, we can address it by a counselor sponsored proposal that then gets referred to the finance committee for financial recommendations, whether that be an issue for funding or for staffing, whatever reason why this initiative is not being seen to fruition. And I know that this forum is focused on District 1 specifically, but addressing roads and sidewalk conditions have been something that I've heard throughout the entire town as something that residents see as an urgent issue that needs to be addressed. And so I think, as well as establishing never-ending sidewalks in areas where they don't have them. And so I think that ultimately the council should look to create a multi-year plan to address this issue, and so that we have very clear landmarks in terms of understanding how our progress is actually moving forward on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Holloway, you have 2 minutes.
Thanks, Alyssa. Thank you for the question. I want to echo my support for sidewalks and walkability and connectivity, particularly among the village centers. And, you know, we spent our morning at the Mill District, actually, you know, breakfast there and then back for the haunted house. So I think it's a great example of the direction that our village centers can move. I do want to talk about the speed safety zone initiative a little bit. You know, my background is I work in public school districts, but I'm also a former member of the state education agency and then regional education agencies as well. So I feel pretty comfortable navigating sort of political systems, and then serving on finance, serving on the cultural council currently. I recently came across something in the parents listserv that essentially somebody was saying, hey, I've been struggling to get this, you know, this speed safety zone thing implemented for over a year now. So I called up that individual. We had a phone call. He described more than a year of traffic studies with the police, with the town manager, with the manager of DPW, extensive correspondence with various town councilors, but for some reason he couldn't make any headway of it. And so I made 2 phone calls to councilors, and I learned that this particular proposal was languishing in the wrong committee. And so this proposal went into TSO within a week or 2 of that phone call, and just sort of getting the right people on board on the issue. And then TSO, of course, made the recommendation that they did. And now I believe the speed safety zone will be moving before the full council in the matter of weeks. So I'm really excited about that. And I think it does illustrate just sort of how I operate, which is, you know, just kind of rolling up sleeves and practical collaborative problem solving. You know, I think I put in a lot of volunteer time, and that has also involved creating relationships. And I believe in problem solving through relationships to get people the right services that they deserve. Thanks.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Andy Steinberg, please.
Well, thank you for the question. North Amherst really has had an experience along the question of sidewalks that we should go back and reflect on for a moment, which is Pine Street. And this goes back to when Alyssa and I were serving on the select board, but the Pine Street sidewalk project took a lot of time and a lot of money in order to figure out how to do it, because I think those of you who walk that sidewalk know that it crosses twice. And it crosses Pine Street twice because the safety requirement and the terrain going along very steep edges made it difficult to have the sidewalk be all on one side. Sidewalks are not easy to build, and they are expensive. And I bring that up in part because I want to just recognize the complexity of the issue, but also to highlight why it costs what it costs, and to also point out that, as I said at the opening statement, we are actually 5 districts, and the other districts are also coming forward with various sidewalk needs that are also very compelling when stated. Having said that, I think that East Pleasant Street is very important, and I would say that as at any townwide meeting that we need to move forward. But in the end, it is a budget question. It's a budget question for the town manager's time. It is a budget issue for the capital choices that need to be made, and we need to find a way to make that move forward so that the council, working with the community, is setting the priorities and helping the town manager to figure out what those priorities are.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Jamie Daniels, please.
Thanks, Alyssa. I've heard these concerns voiced by a number of folks door knocking in this district. And I think addressing traffic and travel issues in North Amherst is really a priority. And it's an imperative that the town plans for dealing with that our plans for dealing with these issues really be informed by the insights and experiences of North Amherst residents. I think those residents are most familiar with the existing conditions. They're likely to have valuable input on potential solutions. So ensuring their active participation in the planning process is really crucial, I think, for developing effective and community supported strategies to mitigate traffic congestion, to improve public transportation and enhance the overall mobility in the area. I think the town council can support by looking to increase revenue for our community. I think, like most municipalities, our budget is really stretched. I think that we need to look to strengthen our strategic partnership with local colleges and especially UMass in this district regarding the traffic congestion issues and sidewalk issues there. I would look to encourage regionalization strategies. I think that we should be lobbying state and federal representatives. I think that our town really deserves pilot payments from Amherst College, and that all town councilors really need to be on a hunt for dollars. I agree that we need a multi-year plan, and I think that most especially we need a long-term infrastructure maintenance plan. Those are some of the things I'd be committed to if elected.
Thank you. And 2 minutes for Mandy Jo Haneke.
Thank you. A lot of what I wanted to say on this question has been said, but I will reiterate some of those thoughts, which is, how do we encourage a DPW to implement plans that maybe we've determined our priorities? The first thing is, we've done it before in transparency and all with the town manager goals. As the council sets the manager goals that we want the manager to meet within a year, we can put some of those priorities in there, as some other candidates have said, but we can also put general things in. One of the things we put into the manager goals a couple of years ago was to publish a street paving list and keep it updated, because people in town were having trouble understanding where on the list their street was. And so we finally put it in the manager goals and said, this should not be hard to do. Like, you should just be able to publish it and update it. We understand it changes every year, but please publish it so that everyone knows where their street is. And it got done. So we can certainly use the manager goals to put in things like publish your priority list of sidewalks. When we get the money, where are you starting with sidewalks, so that people know where they stand and where each sidewalk that is missing or that is in bad shape sits in terms of repaving or new construction. As others have mentioned, the money is a big problem. We have a very tight budget, but the council can encourage through financial guidelines, if they want more money spent on roads and sidewalks, to put that in our guidelines of that's where the money should be spent in terms of trade-offs with others. The other thing the council can do is adopt policies to determine what our priorities are and to make sure we've got them, and where they are, we can do those policies as keeper of the public way. We can do them as councilors, as as a town council, and just adopt the policies that say where our priorities are. Is it rebuilding sidewalks or is it putting new sidewalks in? Things like that. What sidewalks should be built? But as with anything, as other councilors have said, there's a big balance because there's priorities all over town and we have to be able to do those balances. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for keeping to the time limits. I know it's difficult, particularly when it's a nice long question that you can work on different parts of. So question 2 is going to be started by Alicia Walker. Question 2 is, the 2018 charter removed executive authority from being shared between the appointed town manager and a body of 5 at-large elected officials and placed all executive authority in the appointed town manager, while defining the 13-member town council as exercising policy leadership and legislative powers. Given the constraints of the charter and of Massachusetts open meeting law, how do you see yourself as one of 13 effectively influencing town council deliberations and votes? Do at-large town councilors have a different role than district councilors? How do you balance the very loud voices of individuals, as well as of associations like, say, DONA, with what you perceive to be what's best for the entire town? So we're going to start with Alicia Walker. 2 minutes, please.
Thank you, Alyssa. I think there were multiple smaller questions, so I'll do my best to answer all of them. But so as an at-large counselor, my goal is to represent residents across the entire town, which is slightly different than district counselors who are more focused on their district residents. However priorities differ district to district, there are similar overarching themes that you see present throughout all districts. And so as an at-large counselor, I don't necessarily have a different role than district counselors. It is to be listening to my residents, making sure that their concerns make it to the council, and to make sure that their concerns I use to inform the decisions that I make as a counselor. And I believe that that is the same for district counselors as well, just a different subset of that audience. And then how do I balance the role in terms of listening to constituents and louder voices not influencing my decision making? And so I think that because I've been a lifelong Amherst resident, I do have a lot of my own personal experiences that help to inform the decisions that I make at the council level. And I use a lot of the experience that I have had and a lot of the experiences that I have seen in the community growing up to influence the decisions that I make. But I also recognize that there is this town is ever changing. And so it's really critically important for me to be listening to the perspectives of other residents and what they're experiencing now in this day and age. And so I am not afraid to change my mind. And I think that that's a really important thing in being a counselor, especially an at-large counselor, is being able to take feedback, being able to look at data, being able to look at studies and surveys, and really take the feedback from the entire community to inform the decisions that I make. And I'm not sure, I'm sorry, I kind of forget what all of the question was, but I'm out of time. So I hope that that was answered all of the questions you had. Thank you.
Thank you. Andy Steinberg, 2 minutes.
Yeah, Alicia raised a good question. Could you repeat this question portion?
I will, and I'm sorry I didn't do that earlier, but let me go ahead and try it again. I'm gonna start with just the question part. Given the constraints of the charter and Massachusetts open meeting law, how do you see yourself as one of 13 effectively influencing town council deliberations and votes? Do at-large town councilors have a different role than district councilors? How do you balance the very loud voices of individuals, as well as of associations like, say, DONA, with what you perceive to be what's best for the entire town? So we'll start 2 minutes for Andy here.
Okay. There was one other question that you asked, I believe, or you alluded to in your introductory statement, and I just will mention it briefly, and that is the question of the role of the executive and how we direct the role of the executive. And that is a matter of how the 13 counselors work together in establishing the work plan for the town manager and setting the budget guidelines. We moved from the select board to the form of government we have now, and the whole concept of using the guideline approach was actually one that I, as chair of the first finance committee and still chair of the finance committee, was the one who created and moved forward on. And I think that it has been very important. It's really essential that all 13 counselors work together. I think that we have worked together very effectively during the first 2 terms of the council, because while at large are looking for the town-wide, I think that our district counselors have done a good job of that too, of looking at both the interests of their district and trying to explain it to their fellow counselors, and at the same time recognizing that we're one group that are working together for the good of the town. And as we do so, I think that it is very important that we have ongoing communication with organizations like DONA, because we get very valuable information. And I'm going to conclude by saying that in preparation for today's forum, I reviewed a very valuable document that was provided by DONA, where it commented on the master plan and the master plan working document, and the thought about how the master plan affects North Amherst was an incredibly valuable document that really is thoughtful and needs to be considered for the entire community.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Vince O'Connor.
I don't see any real difference between the role of at-large and district counselors. It was set up in such a way, but actually we all are trying and will try to do the same thing, which is to be both effective advocates for issues that we have personal knowledge about, or in the areas where we live, but also be effective advocates and cooperators with other counselors to address town-wide issues. So I don't think there's a lot there. I think that the council is very much like any other legislative body. Individuals who have ideas need to make sure that they develop those ideas in such a way that they can present them in a way that's consistent with the council process, that they talk to other counselors about becoming co-sponsors, about seconding motions that are made at the council and so forth. I mean, this is all standard legislative activity. It's just that there are, unlike the Massachusetts legislature, where there are 200 individuals, we only have 13. And I think it's totally consistent with the open meeting law for us to be talking with each other and in small groups to try to formulate legislation that will be effective for the town. I think that the council's efforts in this area can be improved with a better committee structure, and I will certainly be an effective advocate for that process, because I think we need something that citizens can really relate to. And thank you very much. I see the red pepper. Those are very effective, by the way.
Thank you. Next, we have 2 minutes for Mandy Jo Haneke.
Thank you. So I'm going to start with, how can an individual counselor influence or effectively influence deliberations and votes? And Vince hit on a lot of what I was going to say. You know, we when we serve on a committee that is discussing the legislation, if we come prepared with questions, with comments, with potential changes to whatever that legislation or policy or proposal or, budget guideline, whatever we're discussing, if you come prepared with that, you can have that influence by bringing up your ideas and seeing where everyone else is and having the support behind your ideas and saying why you're asking what you're doing. That requires you to prepare for the meetings and all of that. But you can also do the same thing when you're not on the committee that's got the idea. Just this week, I sent in questions to the finance committee on something so that my questions could be brought up during the finance committee deliberations. So you have to pay attention to the things you're interested in and where they're going in committee, and bring those questions to those committees by emailing a chair or going to the meeting and speaking during the public comment period of those meetings. We have to, in determining how to balance comments with a belief in what's best for the towns, we have to use our judgment. That's one of the things I believe we're elected to do, is use our judgment on those matters, use the best judgment, do the research, do the listening, listen to all the comments, and consider all sides of an issue as you're listening to the comments to try and figure out where the town does stand. And then recognize that the comments you're hearing are probably not the only voices and the only beliefs out there and positions out there, and just again use that judgment and try and do what you believe is best for the town. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Freka Eddy, please.
Thank you. This is a complicated question, and what I have here is that how can one councillor influence action in a 13-person council? Everything else boils down to this, and it is really actually a question about how we consider councillors, whether they are trustees of authority from the districts or whether they're delegates of that authority. It's important to see councillors as representatives, and so the main distinction between an at-large councillor and a district councillor is who they represent. What that then means is that even for district councillors, when they consider the entire town, they have to be focused on will be something that is more about peripheral vision. That's unlike at-large candidates, at-large councillors. At-large councillors need to consider the entire town. I think what this question is also getting at is that it's important to seek input from those you represent. And so finding better ways to get that unmediated input is important, and that's something that I intend to do. And I think something else that this question is teasing out is that zeal isn't enough for good governance. And so even if you have the desire to do something specific for the group you represent, you also need to have good judgment and work together with other councillors. And in consultation and collaboration, you can achieve some of the things that you want. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. 2 minutes. And when I say terrific, everyone's statement is terrific. I'm saying terrific that we're staying on time and that Meg hasn't started having to wave the red peppers around or threaten to throw them. And so that's great. When you see the yellow pepper, you do still have 30 seconds left. So don't panic, but you can start panicking when you see the red, because that's when you really need to stop. All right. So now we're going to move on to Matt Holloway for 2 minutes.
Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks for the question. I'll briefly say that to me, the at-large and the district candidate and councillor don't have any functional difference in their role. I think we're all 13 members of a 13-member body. The key difference that I've seen is that district councillors have an obligation to hold their regular district meetings. And I've seen those to be a really meaningful way to interact with councillors and district members. I've attended many of those in my district as well. So I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle. But in terms of the functions on the council, I don't see any real difference between them. It's a small town, you know, and at-large councilors have got to be responsive to the needs of everybody in every district, just like district councilors do. But I want to actually address the piece that Andy spoke to, which is around the role of the executive. I think it's an exciting time for Amherst, and it's an exciting time to be a candidate for town council. This is only the third town council election under the new charter, and I think the role of the councilor is starting to come into a clearer definition. Each of us comes with our own unique perspective and insight, and I think as a first-time homeowner and the parent of two very young children, I represent a voice that has not frequently been present in the council. And as a councilor, I would be especially focused on understanding and supporting what our town staff are doing and why. This is what the charter calls investigating the affairs of the town and the conduct or performance of any town agency. And for me, that looks very much like a supportive, ongoing relationship with the dedicated professionals who make our town run. The council calls for policy leadership the charter calls for policy leadership out of councilors. I think that involves a close working relationship through boards and committees with town staff. Without a detailed understanding of town offices, councilors won't be able to effectively advocate for the needs and desires of constituents. Occasionally, issues will arise that require new legislation, and when there is a critical mass of councilor and constituent support, I will certainly support policies on their merit. However, I also think that an exercise in the legislative powers includes a review of existing bylaws and policies and an ongoing dialogue on their relevance and effectiveness. Thank you.
And 2 minutes for Kathy Shane.
Thank you. These have been great answers. So am I the last in your list, Alyssa, on this one?
On this one, yes.
All right. Okay, so I will try to avoid repetition except for emphasis. I agree with those who said I don't really see a difference between district and at large when we're functioning in the 13 member council. What I do see from my own experience is the first time I ran in the district is I literally knocked on every door. It's very hard to do that as an at-large candidate, but I got to collect notes from almost everyone I met, if I found them at home, on what was on their mind and reaction to some ideas. So our district meetings allow that to happen to the extent people come, but we can also, as counselors, and we have done that, I've spoken at the District 5 meetings around budget issues. I went to literally every district meeting on the elementary school district. So each of us, depending on what the issue is, can take on an issue and have much more depth than others, or form partnerships with a few of us. The complicating issue that Matt just brought out is if we have enacted something, staff may or may know better than us on how it is or is not working. We don't often do a review of policies that need to be revisited and fixed or tweaked in particular ways. And we sometimes don't have as clear a view. I'm certainly getting a better sense of where there's just a staffing shortage. That we enact a policy and nothing happens, and it's because there's no one there to make it happen. So it is that tension with the executive has a sense of what the staff is and what the resources are, and we have to get enough information to know what's possible. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. And thank you all.
Alyssa, this is
Yes.
Jamie Daniels. I didn't get a chance to answer this question.
We skipped right past you, didn't we, Jamie?
That's okay.
I knew that there was something wrong with the order here. So Andy went after Alicia and we totally skipped you. I am so sorry. Thank you for bringing
No
that to
need
my
to
attention.
apologize. No
I knew we
worries
couldn't
at
be
all.
making up that much time. Would you like me to repeat the question since it's been a while?
I think I have a sense of the question. I'm going to take a stab at it in multiple parts. I think that being a member of a 13-member body really requires one, to show the capacity to really be able to collaborate well with others, to consensus build, and the ability to compromise. And so I think that that's one of the things that we're tasked with as a single counselor on a 13-member body. The difference between, I think, an at-large counselor and a district counselor is that at-large counselors really need to consider the perspective of a larger constituent body, right? The whole town. And so I think we really have our work cut out for us in terms of being able to, stay in conversation with all members of the community and to be receptive to their concerns and to make sure that they feel heard and valued. And that we are working, I'm speaking we as in at-large candidates, are working on behalf of the whole entire community. And I know that this is really challenging because we have a community that is, in this moment, relatively divided. We have competing needs and agendas. I think that there are things that council members can do individually to sort of advocate for transparency, to really do creative things to work to establish open lines of communication with residents across the entire town, holding office hours, finding creative ways to disseminate information, making sure that we're staying abreast of all of the issues. But for me, it will be about really staying rooted in the values that guide me. And in my case, it's a commitment to equity. And I will always let the principles of equity guide my decision-making. And I will continue to articulate my decisions and choices openly and transparency to the entire town, taking into consideration their perspective and the impact on, I think, the most vulnerable members of our community.
Thank you. Thank you all for your patience. I worked so hard to not have one person go after another person who already had been blah, 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 that I am so sorry that I did that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. It's not like you can just look down the table and say, oops, missed one. Thanks all for your patience. So this has all been leading up to question 3. Mandy Johannicki is going to go first on this one. This one takes longer for even me to read, even as fast as I tend to go. North Amherst is not the only part of town concerned about single-family homes being converted to undergraduate student rentals. And we've been through this cycle repeatedly, and sometimes truly historic homes get converted back to family residences. But we're seeing this conversion to undergraduate rentals more with our modest single-family homes, often built for UMass faculty in the later 1940s through the early 1970s. Based on room size and features, some have no garage, very small kitchens, etc., many of these homes would be considered starter homes in today's national market and have not been updated significantly since they were built, partially because so many people have for so many decades had so much of their income tied up in their mortgage payment and taxes. And we know young families with children have limited purchasing power based on wages here and given the limited housing stock on our very limited buildable land. So many young families simply can't afford a fixer-upper whose sale price itself is over $300,000. And then I reminded myself of a recent sale in my neighborhood and said, wait, $500,000 for an updated 1948 Cape with no garage. So we do have a rental registration program, but it's complaint-driven. And even well-managed undergraduate rentals, which do exist, can be a deterrent to those looking for a family-oriented neighborhood. And deep breath, here's the big shocker for everybody. For your answer, do not include any expectation that UMass will be creating any more undergraduate housing on campus ever. We're going to sit with that for a moment because that is the answer that everyone has been giving for decades. UMass has recently put some more beds online, is continuing to do so, but we're going to focus elsewhere because there are other ways of approaching this. So since your answer today cannot include you and your colleagues getting together and convincing UMass to build more undergraduate housing on campus, unless you want us to recognize we're not following directions here, what else have you done or can you do as one of 13 town councilors about increasing the affordability and accessibility of various types of housing available
and our time. Mandy Jo, you have 2 minutes to start.
Thank you. 2 minutes is going to be tough. One of the things I've done is propose with Councillor Devlin Gauthier a transfer fee special act that was heard last week at the State House with hearings to try and increase the amount of funding available for affordable and attainable housing projects. It was a special act that was written specifically for Amherst, with Amherst's needs in mind, so that if it was granted, we would be able to write a bylaw for how we use the money, where the money goes, and who is subject to the transfer fee. So that's just one thing. The other thing I've done is co-sponsored proposed legislation to revise our zoning bylaw that was designed to provide more pathways to home ownership and increase the diversity of the housing types in town. It dealt with duplexes, triplexes, converted dwellings, and townhouses. Things that types of housing we don't have a lot of in town. It was withdrawn. If I'm reelected, I hope to bring some of that back after hearing all of the comments, retooling it, looking at what was most supported of that policy and proposal, and bring it back in pieces. But the benefit of that proposal was that it started a conversation in town, a conversation at the planning board that is still ongoing, that as of last week included the potential for an overlay district on University Drive to find ways to build more mixed use and apartment buildings in that area of town, that I believe in the coming weeks, the planning department will be proposing an actual legislation for the planning board to really get their hands into what that would look like and what they would want from it. So the conversations are ongoing. We also need to be looking at beyond just the University Drive area, other areas of town where we can put student housing, student geared housing. I don't want to call it student housing because anyone can live in it, but student geared housing that is close to the university is what they would want, in hopes of removing that incentive for single family homes to be bought up by investors and converted to rentals that are unaffordable for others. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Holloway, 2 minutes.
Thanks, Alyssa. This is a really complex one, and I will say that Governor Healy's package is really exciting. I'll be, I guess, the first one to mention that. Although, Mandy Jo, I know, spoke to some pieces of it, but it is exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what pieces of that will get to us, in Amherst. You asked about affordable and accessible housing, and I will say that although Ball Lane is a very unique project and one that really we can't point to as solving the student housing crisis, I do want to draw a couple of lessons from it really quickly. And there's folks on this call now, like Janet Keller, who have helped educate me about this project and what's happening there. And I think the thing that I share the most about the Ball Lane project, in addition to the fact that it's a pathway towards home ownership for first-time homeowners and subsidized subsidized sales, is how supportive the community is of it. I think the excitement that the neighborhood feels around that project is something that we really, as a community, as a town, want to capitalize on and see if we can build further on those lines. So I spoke about the economic development director position earlier. That is somebody that I would like to see steering the work of our planning board and steering the work of developers towards densifying our village centers, as is outlined in the master plan. I think there's certainly an issue around trying to control the rentals and control, the transfer of property. And I think there's really good work being done on that. But I also think there's just a core housing stock issue that we're running into. And so finding ways to develop smaller homes, townhomes, condos, things like that is really important. And then, finally, I would just say, although Alyssa, you said not to, the public-private partnership work that has been started at UMass is an exciting piece of work as well, too. And I think we need to continue to encourage that. Thanks.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Alicia Walker, please.
Thank you. So I know, just really quickly, I wanted to touch on UMass and Amherst College negotiations for the town manager, and to propose that they provide more money to the town in general. And that's something that, overall falls on the town manager, but the town council can possibly look at adding that to a goal or figuring out how we can sort of just state that that is something that we're looking to have happen. Another thing the town can do is identify unused town land that can provide space for new housing initiatives. We can look at zoning bylaws to increase the creation of mixed-use building and look to increase requirements of affordable housing units that must be housed in each of those buildings. We can also look to find ways to incentivize apartment owners to create more affordable housing. We can also invest in the Affordable Housing Land Trust, which has offered at this time one $250,000 voucher for a first-time home buyer to help as a down payment, but that is one voucher where many other towns have actual pots of money that are used for multiple first-time home buyers to have down payment assistance programs. So I think that's definitely something our town should look into establishing. And then also just working on our relationship with the Affordable Housing Trust Board. I know they've been working on creating or trying to figure out the housing inventory in the town, which has been actually a challenge for them, figuring out exactly what we do have so that we can directly determine what needs are unmet. And that might help guide us in terms of determining whether or not we need more income-based housing, subsidized housing, new single-family homes. I think tiny homes is another recommendation that did come out of the Affordable Housing Trust, and they did have a presentation on that as well. And so I think it's really about being creative, because I think we're going to need to use multiple different ways to address this issue. No one proposal is going to be the final solution to the affordable housing crisis. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Kathy Shane, please.
Thank you. The length of the question itself gives a sense of the complexity of what you're asking us to address. One thing I think we need to start out with is how much land there is in Amherst, period, to be developed. And Elisa, you quickly flew by that, but we have, if you look around, some of the spaces that are open are very wet, as in flooded. They're not developable. And so we have grabbed large swaths of land and built, and then we're often protecting wetlands. We're not just protecting open lands per se. So until we start thinking regionally, we have some restrictions in Amherst on what can be built new. And one of the issues about building new, took a look at Sunderland, which has a little less of the student population buying up houses, condos, duplexes. Half of them were selling for $350,000 to $400,000. So two of them attached were $800,000, and Ball Lane is coming in with this. New construction is incredibly expensive. So the issue of money is coming up. Our CPA, Community Preservation Act, has put a lot of money into different pathways, including first-time home buyer assistance, renter assistance, building assistance. But Matt quickly mentioned the $4 billion governor announcement on affordable housing, which said, and Western Mass will be included. I think we need to go after that money and figure out what can come in. So some of it might be conversions. Some of it might be very creative solutions around co-housing and different pieces, but we are always going to face, and I see the yellow pepper, that there is going to be a limited amount of land that we have that hasn't already been built on. So really starting from where can we build and what could be built there, or where can we rebuild, will be one of our challenges. Just over our border, Hadley, and around it, there is land. And so this should not be just an Amherst solution. It's not much further away to drive from Hadley into the center of town. It's less than where I live getting to town. Thanks.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Freka Etta, please.
Thank you for the question. When I decided to run, one of the reasons was because of how unaffordable it was to find housing here in Amherst. But unlike most of the other candidates, I don't have many solutions I can proffer. What I can say is I bring a curiosity to find a solution, that can work or solutions that can work. I think some things that we could look at, for example, are to seek partners for transitional housing and also to find ways to incentivize for moderate income housing. I think something else that we should be paying attention to is how do we publicize the initiatives that already exist that the town has for affordable housing. I think sometimes there tends to be a lack of information for those who are looking to find a place. And so better education for those seeking housing for whatever income bracket they are in might be another way that we could improve the housing situation we have at Amherst. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Vince O'Connor.
You're muted, Vince.
Okay, thank you. I think we have to face the fact that we are not going to be able to build our way into or out of unaffordability and into affordability. That is going to take regulatory activity. I think Mayor Wu of Boston has put her finger on the problem and how to solve it. I think we need to be conducting hearings about the unaffordability, the buying up of single-family homes as a council, and get all of our factual material both in our hands, but also before the public, so that when we propose something, the public understands the nature of the problem, what solutions can address the problem in some ways. But essentially, student demand for housing in Amherst should be viewed as being infinite, that we are never going to satisfy that demand. And we have to decide who the town is going to be operated for. The folks who are here 7 months a year, or the families who live here 12 months a year. I think we have to make a choice. And I don't think the choice should be to put dormitories on every house lot in Amherst behind every single family home, because that will simply invite more real estate speculators to come in and buy more homes. I think we have to face the fact that this problem is going to need a regulatory solution. All the things we can do, the positive things with money and so forth, are all great. But eventually this problem is going to have to be solved in a regulatory manner.
Thank you. 2 minutes for Andy Steinberg, please.
So talked about 3 types of housing, really: student housing, affordable housing for low income, and affordable housing just generally. And I'll try and touch on all 3 of them, but mostly the first and third. The question of student housing is a difficult one, and as said, it's not going to be solved at the university. It's not going to be solved at the colleges. It's going to have to be addressed as a community issue. I think that we need to recognize that the conversion of student housing is affecting the market, and it's affecting the quality of living for the people who are still trying to maintain houses as family housing. And I think that District 1 has suffered that longer than the other districts, but it is spreading through town. There are things we can do, such as making sure that we enforce all codes and do the rental registration revisions that we're talking about, so that we can really take better control of the regulatory piece that Vince just spoke about. I think we can also be doing things to enhance our ability to limit the number of rental houses that can be there. There are other communities that have done that. Some councilors have spoken about that issue. I think we've done some very good work and continue to do good work as much as we can on affordable housing for low-income people by preserving Rolling Green and the Northampton Road project, the East Street School, the College Street Ball Lane. There have been just a tremendous amount of efforts going on. But the real problem is the one that we don't have enough opportunities for families, and that is going to be the big challenge. And I think that we talked about that through this group about the lack of space to build and the need to do infill.
Thank you. And purposefully this time, we did not forget. 2 minutes for Jamie Daniels.
Thank you, Alyssa. I too entered this race because after living in Amherst my whole life and climbing the socioeconomic ladder, I was shut out of the housing market here. My mother, who spent my entire life here, had to leave Amherst to buy a home. I think that in District 1 and in other parts of Amherst, the surge of undergraduate students residing in apartment complexes and single-family homes has really dramatically transformed the housing landscape. Single-family homes are being bought by out-of-town landlords with the intention of converting them into student residence. This is really concerning to me. We have a lack of available housing for non-student residents, including myself and my family. And I think that we see how this really has altered the characteristics of neighborhoods, and often not for the better. And, you know, furthermore, renting to mostly students is really driving up our rental prices, making it hard for families like mine to stay in Amherst. I think that the town council really should be prioritizing comprehensive housing policies that include a wide range of initiatives. This includes like initiatives to promote affordable housing development, sensible zoning reforms, stricter regulations of existing rental properties. We need to develop a range of housing types for a range of consumers. I agree with Vince. I think that this is a regulatory issue and that there's a number of things that we can do about that. And furthermore, I think it's essential that we continue to advocate for new and comprehensive policies, housing policies at the state and national level. Addressing the crisis, the housing crisis that we have, it really demands a multifaceted approach that balances our town's unique housing needs with the reality that we don't have the capacity to solve this problem without state and national support. Thank you, Meg.
Thank you. And thank you all. Well, it's 4:28 and we are staying on time. I thought about a bonus question, although when I floated it by some people, they said, wow, that's a downer. But I'm actually going to bring it up. And if you want to touch on it in your closing statement, you can. Most of you have probably pre-written your closing statements, but you could. Many candidates frequently use the phrase, if elected. But 2 of the 5 at-large candidates and 1 of the 3 district candidates, meaning 3 of the 8 that took the time to spend with us today, are not going to win seats on November 7th. So if you don't win, what kind of ongoing community engagement might we expect to see from you after the election? Something to think about. And another thing to think about, again, whether it's in your closing statement or just as we're in this last 2 weeks of the campaign, and as people continue to write to you, thanks to all the links you provided that we put on the DONA website, is given all the things you heard here today, what other things you would like North Amherst to know about you that maybe you didn't get to include. But we are about to enter into closing statements. They're going to be 2 minutes, just like opening statements. We are going to begin with 2 minutes for a closing statement from Andy Steinberg.
Okay. I want to thank DONA, the District 1 Neighborhood Association, for organizing this event, and thank all of you for devoting part of your Sunday to hearing from the town council candidates. You've heard our responses to your concerns about Amherst. In Amherst, we have a lot of needs and limited resources, and that was obvious. We are challenged by the amount of land we cannot tax or fully tax because it is university or college campus, or land devoted to conservation or agriculture. Our business district is limited. We have a smaller commercial area than most communities of our size. That places a tax burden on those of us who own residential properties. Our needs begin with essential services and improving our infrastructure. We also want to meet climate action and affordable housing goals and achieve a balanced budget. We need leaders with financial acumen who can know how to use resources wisely and find smart ways to generate more revenue without compromising our town's character and values. I've spent 27 years in volunteer and leadership positions in Amherst town government, 2 terms on the town council and select board, town meeting finance committee, and as chair of the council finance committee. I've gained a tremendous amount of financial experience and a deep understanding of the town's finances, its strengths and its vulnerabilities. Those are skills that I can bring to the town if I have another term. The one other thing that I can do is continue as a member of the Massachusetts Municipal Association Fiscal Policy Committee, which sets policy for lobbying. I was very successful in getting that committee to lobby for increased funding for construction of libraries and schools, which came to the benefit of our town directly, and hope to be able to continue to do that again. I would be honored to have your vote for the next town council term. Thank you.
Thank you. Now a 2-minute closing statement by Kathy Shane.
Thank you all for spending time with us. I have to say it's been a total honor to have served as a District 1 councilor since the councilor's inception. I have met an amazing number of wonderful people, which one always knows the resources we have are our people in town, but the number of people who have stepped up, when we talked about the council as legislators, the creative ideas and written policy ideas that have come from not just North Amherst, but others, are truly of high value and highly valued by me. One of the reasons, as I said in my opening comments, is that I'm running is to finish or carry through on the work of the elementary school. It's been such a privilege to be able to be chair of a committee that's working on behalf of all of our children and future generations of children and climate all at the same time. We really, the town rallied and came to support this. I think about how exciting it is. And I worked, people said, you're working really hard on this. And I said, this is such a labor of love. It didn't feel like work. If elected and re-elected, I pledged to be thinking outside of the box the way we did with the school on a broad set of issues. As Andy just mentioned, more than half of our land is tax exempt, with our 3 major employers' buildings being tax exempt. So we have a budget box that's framed by our property tax. We need to think more broadly. A healthy Amherst future depends on it. And I hope with your support that I'll be able to continue to serve District 1, but all of Amherst, which has always been my goal. Thank you.
Thank you. 2-minute closing statement from Jamie Daniels.
So thank you again, DONA, for this opportunity. I'm running for town council for a number of reasons. First and foremost, I'm running because I believe that policy level change is an imperative, and I have a longstanding interest in shaping policy that's good for all people. I'm running because I believe that fair representation is essential in terms of a strong democracy, and without it, public trust is eroded. I believe that women like me and the communities that I've been a part of must be fairly represented. I'm running to ensure that an equity lens is applied to all aspects of governance, and I'm running because I believe that I can be of service in some of the unique challenges that our town faces, most especially the political polarization that exists. I'm deeply committed to matters of equity and justice. I care about climate issues, affordable housing, civic engagement, and smart and sustainable development. If I'm elected, you can trust that I will commit my full self to this endeavor. I believe in small d democracy. And if I'm elected, I'll make sure that I make myself accessible to you, and I'll stay in conversation with you and to our entire community. I'll stay abreast of the issues. I will propose bold and innovative policy solutions. I'm a very out-of-the-box thinker, and those who know me can attest to that fact. I will look to build consensus on important issues. I know that identifying the best policy solutions, it not only requires a grasp of the issues, but also an ability to work well with others, energy and innovation, and a willingness to compromise. I'll be a model of positivity and compromise, and I'll make sure that every decision I make is made through the lens of equity and justice, and considering the full and long-term impact on the most vulnerable members of our community and on our planet. Thank you. I hope that you will vote for me on November 7th.
Thank you. 2-minute closing statement by Vince O'Connor.
Vince, please unmute.
I have a history of a long history of effective legislative action, both in Amherst and action as a community organizer for North Amherst issues. I think we have identified our main problems: affordable housing, road repair, and as to road repair, I think we need to look to UMass to share its parking fees, or to work with us at the legislative level to get Chapter 90 impact money because of the tremendous number of vehicles that UMass brings to this town, which do not pay anything toward our roads through the automobile excise. We need to do something about school funding, and my view is that the proper place is to get Amherst College to put money in to both school districts, a large sum to each, to make up for the fact that they took all of their fraternities in the 1980s off our tax rolls and created a structural deficit that has been with us ever since. Finally, one, I'd like your vote. I have served North Amherst for a long time, and I would like to continue to do so in this new legislative forum. I also would urge North Amherst residents to vote for council at large for Lisa Walker and Jamie Daniels, and for the other district councilor, for Kathy Shane, because of her incredible work to bring a new school before the voters in such an effective way that we had such a great vote on it. This is the first new elementary school we will have built in 51 years, and we owe her a tremendous debt of gratitude.
Two-minute closing statement from Alicia Walker, please.
Thank you, DONA, and to my fellow Amherst residents. It has been an honor sharing some of my vision and aspirations with you today and serving as your counselor at large for the last 2 years. Amherst is more than just my home. I've experienced this town from all angles as a student, a parent, a renter during the housing crisis, and a professional. My deep-rooted connection to our community has driven my passion for representing you all at the council level. I stand here committed to the principle of representation. I believe our local government should be a true reflection of the people it serves. My life experiences have provided me with a unique perspective that I bring to my role as a counselor, ensuring that a broader range of voices are heard at the decision-making table. I aspire to leave a legacy of amplifying the voices of our most marginalized community members who have been disengaged for too long. And I've chosen to run at large because I believe these voices can be found in every corner of our town and they deserve genuine representation. If re-elected, my priorities will be centered on providing opportunities for affordable, income-based and subsidized housing and championing creative, collaborative, and community-based solutions to our town's most pressing issues. I'm committed to fostering an anti-racist, equity-based approach across the board and to benefit all of our community members. And if I'm not elected, I will continue to seek to hold my counselors accountable to their constituents and to their decisions. I will continue to show up for public comment and to serve on town committees as I have done for the last 4 years. I will also continue to be an advocate for my community and to inform them to the best of my ability as to what is happening at the council level and how their experiences can help to shape policy changes and decision-making. Over the past 2 years, I've learned, grown, and worked on important initiatives. I hope to continue these efforts and bring them to fruition with your support. And so as we approach November 7th, I humbly ask for your vote for our collective future. Together we can build on what works for Amherst and address what doesn't. Our town is a vibrant community, and we want it to be a place where all residents can thrive and prosper regardless of their background. So thank you for your time today and for considering me as one of your counselors at large. Thank you.
Thank you. 2-minute closing by Freka Etta, please.
I might first start by thanking DONA for hosting this forum, and also Meg and Alicia for the questions that were asked. I'd also like to thank the other candidates involved in this session, as well as the town itself, for both welcoming me and educating me about the issues that are prevalent in this town. I think we have an opportunity to create a climate where we bring people together rather than pull them apart. Amherst as a town has a lot of great ideas, but great ideas are not all that is needed to keep a town together, working well. What is needed in addition to great ideas is good judgment and an ability to work together, both by temperament and also by my modeling in action with the Community Safety and Social Justice Committee. I've shown that not only can I work with good ideas, but I also look to collaborate with others and work together with them to translate those ideas into reality. So I would also like to thank those who will be voting from District 1, and I look forward to one of the 2 votes for District Councilor. Thank you.
Thank you. 2-minute closing statement by Matt Holloway.
Thank you, Alyssa, and thanks again to DONA for this wonderful opportunity. My wife and I made the conscious decision to move to Amherst in 2019, and we were inspired to raise our family in this town with this dedication to education, equity, arts, and the environment. From the very beginning, I've worked to carry through on that vision, drawing on 2 decades of experience supporting the education of students with disabilities as a teacher, administrator, and state policymaker. From service on the Amherst Finance Committee to co-chairing the Amherst Cultural Council, I've shown my willingness to roll up my sleeves and work for the good of the town. Earlier this year, I co-chaired the Vote Yes campaign for the new elementary school project, working closely with Kathy and other counselors on the screen, to demonstrate my energy, leadership, and my commitment to Amherst's future. I come to you with priorities relating to revenue growth for fiscal stability and to reduce pressure on taxpayers, completion and careful management of our 4 capital projects, a comprehensive plan to address needed repairs to our roads and sidewalks, a desire to honor the council's commitments to equity and inclusion, especially for BIPOC and other historically marginalized communities, and support for families, including excellent schools and childcare. I believe Amherst has worked to be a beacon of educational excellence, a vibrant cultural destination, and a place where families and seniors are welcomed and supported. That work is never done. As new challenges emerge, we rely on the council to lead thoughtfully, collaboratively, and with an eye towards long-term resilience and fiscal stability. As a councilor, I will take a responsible approach to growing Amherst economy, protecting our natural and historical heritage, and ensuring that our community works for all of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. And a 2-minute closing statement by Mandy Jo Haneke.
Thank you. Thank you again to the District 1 Neighborhood Association for hosting us this afternoon, and to Alyssa Brewer for moderating, and to Meg Gage for her adept timing, keeping us on time with the red and yellow peppers. In my 2 terms on the council, I have proven I can forge collaborative relationships to make Amherst a vibrant, healthy town that respects all voices, addresses climate change, tackles our housing crisis, and plans for the future in a fiscally responsible manner. As you heard during this term, I've co-sponsored legislation to increase the diversity of housing types in town, generate more funding for affordable and attainable housing, reduce our energy usage and improve street lighting, and ensure access to health care. In doing so, I have shown that I am a collaborative legislator, having worked with nearly all of my fellow councilors in the 5 years I've been on the council. And I've also shown that I believe in compromise. Getting something done and moving the stake just a little bit forward is better than sticking your feet in the ground and saying, I'm not going to move at all because it's not what I proposed. And I have shown that I am willing to revise any of my policies to get something across that finish line so that we can improve our town. If reelected, I'll continue doing that and working to meet our aggressive climate action goals, address our housing crisis, and improve our infrastructure. My experience and leadership has served the council well the past 5 years and will continue to do so. If you put your trust in me, I'll continue working hard to represent you and all of Amherst's residents well. You can find more information about my positions at my website, votehaneke.org, and I ask that you please cast one of your 3 at-large votes for me, Mandy Jo Haneke, for Town Councilor at Large, when you vote this fall, either by mail-in ballot, voting early at Town Hall, or voting on November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Deep breath, everybody. I wish we could give you a round of applause. That just doesn't work right on Zoom, but you definitely deserve it. Thank you all for coming out today, spending this time with us. Thank you for joining us. And thank you to the audience for joining us as well. We also appreciate your service and your ongoing engagement in our community. Please point your friends to amherstdona.org. That's Amherst, DONA.org. And everyone, please do remind your neighbors to vote by mail. And if they didn't get their mail-in ballot yet, that means maybe they didn't renew it for this year. So you want to double check on that. You can check that status online because we got our ballots this week. You can also vote early in person with those hours available on the town website, or you can go to your polling place from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 7th. But please, please do remember to vote. All these people have worked so hard, and the worst thing you can hear after an election is, that was yesterday, that was last week, and realize that people really weren't engaged. So please do remind people to vote. Thank you all. You can watch for this DONA recording to be available early this week, depending on our other technical assistance with that. Thank you again for coming tonight, and good evening to all.